Hello, and welcome to the 6th annual meeting of the Top Shelf Society, where we are going to be talking about Mexican Gothic, our very spooky October book. And I think we're going to have some of our most interesting conversations that we have had yet. So before we get started, if you're just catching this on the repeat or whatever, I want to let everyone know that our November book is going to be Rebecca, which also has like a new movie coming out. So definitely a good excuse to pick up the book. But like always, we will start off with our member introduction. So I'll go first. Hi, my name is Kristin. My channel is Perks of a Bookflower, and I read basically everything. Recently, it's been a lot of cozy mysteries.
Hi, I'm Angela, and my channel is angelarosereads. I read basically everything too. I like to read seasonally, so a lot of mysteries and thrillers now, but I usually like fantasy and magical realism the most.
Hi, I'm Ysenia. I have a channel as well. Channel is just my first name, but I am trying to figure out what kind of books I'm reading right now. It's a little bit of everything as well, so that's me.
Hi, my name is Sara, and I read with my cat, and I also make TBRs that I do not complete. Hi.
Same.
Fair.
I'm Laura. My channel is Laura Reads Pages, though I've been thinking of changing my channel name. I don't really like it, but for now it's Laura Reads Pages, and I also read a little bit of everything.
Ooh, do you have any ideas for your to change?
I don't, but if you can think of some.
My name's Stephanie. My channel is Stephanie's Bookverse, and I read mainly fantasy and sci-fi, but I throw a bit of everything in there too.
Nice. Oh, look at us with our tea mugs. Wow, we're so fancy. Okay, well, so next up we do our synopsis like usual, and I read this book at the beginning of October. So please forgive me if I get this wrong, and if anyone else wants to jump in, please do. But basically, Mexican Gothic is kind of like I don't know, it's like a Gothic novel for the modern age, I guess, but it kind of like takes place in history as well. And it follows our main character who goes to a house to get her cousin, I believe, who has gotten very ill. And then once they're in the house, lots of crazy things happen. And we'll talk about some of it because the only word that comes to my mind is weird. Weird.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's kind of where the synopsis has to stop. Otherwise, it would be lots of spoilers. And speaking of spoilers, this is where we want to give our spoiler warning. We basically talk constantly about everything in the book. So if you don't like that, read the book and then come back and watch this. Okay, so I guess we're going to start off. Sara did a lot of hard work for us. Like, Sara, you just deserve a little pat on the back for yourself and claps because you have done so much work for the club. The social media, our Instagrams and Twitters and Goodreads page. Definitely check out our Goodreads page, by the way, if you haven't. And just honestly, you're like the little mom of our group. We couldn't do it without you.
It's all Olivia.
Yeah.
She's very good with a computer.
So I want to know first, like, who like just finished the book like recently?
No, wait, this side.
Okay, so what was your like initial reaction when you finished reading this book?
So this is by far the most bizarre book that I think I've ever read. That two words come to mind. The first being weird, the second one being bizarre. It kind of, I'm still in the state of trying to figure out what happened, but in a good way. I enjoyed myself. We'll get into the ratings and stuff later, I'm sure, but it was definitely one thought that I did have though, and I don't know if you all agree with me. I do think that this kind of format would make a way better movie or a show than a book. I'm not saying that the book was bad.
I thought the same thing. I agree.
Yeah.
Like a mini series or something would be really cool.
Is it getting one? Am I making that up, or did I read that somewhere?
I saw that it was becoming like a film or something like that.
That'd be cool. I'd watch that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think it would be cooler because it would probably be more scary.
Yeah.
Because I just felt like weird the whole time.
Yeah.
And all of those like back and forths between like whenever the fungus is like messing with her head and when it's reality, like I still don't know like what parts were actually real and what part was the fungus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see how they depict that in a film or in a TV show.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it would make it more like clear what we were, if we were witnessing her dreams or like her entering this. What was it called? The doom, the gloom.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Gloom.
I don't know where I've heard this before, but I've heard like somewhere someone say like there's a fungus among us. And that was like the phrase that kept repeating in my head. It's just like, yep, there's a fungus. But I remember the shift too whenever it came from being like kind of just like a Gothic novel to where I feel like it was really a horror novel. And like from then on is when it just got more and more bizarre.
Yeah, there was kind of a clear turning point where there was like build up, like hinting at things, kind of like a mystery feel. You're trying to piece things together, and then it kind of like everything was revealed, and then from there on, it was more like a horror thriller kind of thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. So before we like go deep into the discussion, I'm so curious to see if anyone can predict who is going to say this is not a top shelf read.
Oh.
I feel like
Top one for Laura.
yeah, me either. I feel like we know each other's reading taste though at this point, so we probably have a good idea.
Ooh, this is interesting.
Can we? How about? I have a suggestion. How
Okay.
about we go around, and if you think that person will not like the book, raise your hand.
That's a great idea. So I guess we can start off with me. So raise your hand if you think I will not like the book.
Well, that's not fair though, because you talked to me while you were reading it, so I kind of already know your thoughts.
Also, like, are we voting on whether you think it's not a top shelf read or whether you didn't like it? Because
I think-
you could still like it, but it not be a top shelf read.
I think top shelf read.
Okay,
Oh.
so I'm
Okay.
gonna say it's not a top shelf read for Kristin.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think so either.
I think I'm probably going with that too.
Interesting.
I think you're gonna say it is.
Every single one so far I've said is a top shelf read, haven't I? I feel like
I'm
I
going
have.
based off statistics.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's pretty much it.
She
Okay.
said books.
Besides this.
Angela.
Crickets.
I think you liked it.
I think you liked it too.
I liked it, but I don't know if she thinks it's top shelf.
No.
I don't think so.
Am I supposed to say anything or just be quiet?
No.
Okay,
No, we're
okay,
just seeing.
Take it in.
Okay. So we all think that Angela will love it.
I got pretty strict top shelf. Like I haven't made. I'm pretty picky for that.
Yeah. That's why I think, I don't know. I don't think so.
I do love horror. I do love Gothic, but I
Yeah.
am very picky. So we'll see. Wild card. No, actually, Sarah's always the wild card.
Oh, yeah.
That's true. Okay.
I'm gonna be stunned if you say it's the top shelf read. That's what I'll say.
Ysenia.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I don't think so too.
That's fair.
What do our people in like the comments think? You guys can throw it out too.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
Ysenia
that's
liked the book.
There you
Okay, Sarah, what do you think?
I think she's gonna say it is. I just
I
don't know.
would say
Like,
it's not.
oh,
I think she's gonna say it's not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like Sarah would like this book.
oh, gosh, this is hard.
I think it's like kind of weird, kind of different. I feel like Sarah likes books that have a little bit of like a weird edge to them.
And you got to do research from it, which you liked.
Mm-hmm.
But I did research on Emma, so.
That's fair. By the way, I see. Okay, this is not Emma, I don't think, but I see cheese curds everywhere now. It's freaking me out. Even at like fast food places, they sell cheese curds now, and I'm like, what is happening?
Where?
We made it happen.
You can't unlearn the curd.
I don't want one though. They're gross. They sound gross. Sorry.
They do sound really gross. I still
So
haven't.
yeah, for those who are in the chat, say who you think will say that this is a top shelf read. We're curious to see. So my lips are sealed. Laura?
I do not.
I don't think Laura's going to say it's a top
This is
five.
not Laura's book.
Everyone's like,
Everyone not to tease Laura.
Which Laura does not think that most of the books we read are top shelf. I think there's been like 2 or something.
What I think I said Emma, Fahrenheit 451, and Black Girl Unlimited. So,
Okay.
Same, actually. I think so, yeah.
That's like half.
It's pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
By the way, we've been doing this for 6 months now.
Woo!
This is our 6th live show. Isn't that crazy?
I actually love these live shows. It's like the highlight of my month.
Everyone.
They're so fun. I know. I wish we could have a book club in real life. That'd be more fun. But
Maybe go to South Korea sometime.
yes.
Actually, this might be my last one from South Korea because I'm moving home next month. So
Aw.
I think good.
Okay, and Stephanie.
I'm going to say no.
Yeah, me too.
Probably not.
Yeah, I just don't think it was top shelf. I think you liked it, maybe, but I don't know.
I think she liked it. I'm gonna say that, but it's hard.
This is crazy. This might be like majority not top shelf read.
I do think Stephanie will say yes.
Oh, let's see here. Bridget says, I think Sarah and Angela will say it's a top shelf read.
Okay.
I can see that. That's fair. Also, just hi to everyone in the chat. We're glad you're here. Thanks for joining us. You're awesome.
Well, as we're talking about this, I'm realizing that I actually did put my rating on Twitter earlier, and I forgot.
I didn't see it.
I saw
So,
it.
like-
I know what you did.
Oh no, sorry.
I'll keep my mouth shut. It's all right. It's
I bet it was like
It's been
2
on
stars.
Twitter.
Okay.
It wasn't what I expected. That's
You know,
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting.
I don't think anyone was expecting what this book was.
literally I buddy read this in September with Leanne from Scrap Paper Scribbler, and we were just like messaging the whole time, and at one point it was like maybe halfway through and I was like, okay, we'll get it done in like the next week, and I messaged her a day later and I was like, so I finished it. Sorry. Like they got too weird. I couldn't not, when it hit that point, you guys know what I'm talking about. It hits the point and you're just like, all right, I gotta ride this train to Crazy Town because this is
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
What I was expecting, but it wasn't this.
How
Okay.
could you? How could you expect this? That's crazy.
Okay, can I say though about what you just said? How could you expect this? I actually had the opposite. Is like I thought it was way too blatantly obvious what was going on, because I felt like on every single page she would be like, "Oh, the cup and saucer has mushrooms all over it. We had mushrooms in our dinner. We had mushrooms on the plate. There's mushrooms. And I was like, you said it like a million times. I'm like, so if this isn't mushrooms, you just have a really fascination with them.
I get that, but I would guess mushrooms. Yeah, but I didn't think it would be like jumping between bodies situation.
Okay, no, yeah, not that. No.
But I didn't think it was to that extent.
Yeah.
Based off the cover, I was like, this is going to be like a romantic haunted house story with like beautiful like costumes and everything, and there might be a little scare. But I was reading it and I was like, ew, like I told you what I do for a living, and I was like, ugh.
I mean, you don't enjoy reading about cannibalism? What?
I don't know about
that was awful. The baby thing.
Right?
Oh.
I also wasn't expecting the family tree to have one branch. That was another thing that I was like, okay, we're doing this. We're keeping it in the family, I guess.
Literally, and only in the family. Like,
it was like
Sara said.
The first part was every kind, which I liked. The first part was every sort of Gothic trope. So they had like the creepy eugenicist. They had like the haunted mansion and this aristocratic family, and then all these different like classically Gothic things. And the second part was like every gross thing you can imagine, with the cannibalism and the incest and like and so on. So
it really was like a shift from just being traditionally Gothic to becoming like horror. Because the beginning, you could think it was like a kind of modern Jane Eyre type of thing. Go off to a creepy house, creepy guy, like, you know, what's going on. But yeah, that shift, once it comes out that it's the mushrooms or whatever, everything is like not Gothic anymore, like completely horror.
Yeah.
So are there any like big moments that stick out to you guys that's like, this is like the grossest thing ever? Like the grossest thing that you can think of from when you were reading the book?
I've read Stephen King since I was a teenager, so not really. I pretty much read a lot of horror, so it wasn't that surprising.
Yeah, I feel like the horror part didn't bug me as much as when he was like pretty much trying to rape her and forcing her to like to want it. Like that messed with me. I was like, no, heck no.
Yeah, that was really gross. Yeah. I agree with that.
I've read like 2 Stephen King, and the horror always does like get to me a lot. But the part where they're like I don't think it's like the basement or something, and there's that like buzzing woman with like, I don't know, the description there was really gross.
Yeah.
Was there also a part where they planted a woman alive in order to like
that was the same woman.
plant the foundation? The same woman?
Yeah.
That was pretty gross.
Yeah.
Oh, I know the part that got me the most. Didn't the old man spit in his mouth or something?
Yes.
That made me like gag out loud. Like, that grossed me out more than anything else. Just like imagining that nasty stuff, and he just like spit it in her mouth. I was like, no.
Oh my gosh, Bridget. Yes. Oh my word.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%. It was like summary of the book.
I did like how she would like come in there with a dose of reality. Like Noemi wasn't just like your typical Gothic protagonist who's like, oh, help me, I'm so helpless and stuff. Like she had a sense of humor and some spunk, which was good.
I loved her. I loved her so much. I loved her as a character. This is like the 1950s. She was well-read. She was hilarious. She was kind of everything that I wanted her to be in that sort of story. I didn't want her to become this just like, I don't know, just, you know what I mean? Like sort of like a romantic damsel in distress. Like to me, I was like, I like her. I like her. I love how she was like knowledgeable in things like, I don't know if she was knowledgeable necessarily in like eugenics, but that sort of like she was able to like have that sort of dialogue And I think it was pretty cool because she, like how she was as a protagonist sort of reminded me of what I sort of gathered from what the author was, who is incredibly well read. She is Mexican Canadian. She has a Master of Arts. Her thesis was in it talked about eugenics as well. Like I read it, and I thought that was so awesome. And honestly, like in terms of Noemi as a character, and how she was described and how she was in the book, like, okay, I don't buy book covers. Like I don't buy books usually. I usually get books from the library. There was no way I was not buying
Yeah.
this.
Yes.
This is so incredibly beautiful. And I just feel like in this, she is just like fierce, and I just love her so much. And I think that this cover, like, it didn't necessarily, like, I thought it was going to be different based off the cover, but knowing who Noemi was as she was revealed throughout the book, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I also really liked Naomi. If it was just on that character, I would definitely top shelf. But the reason she ended up in that house, it was a way to bargain with her father in order for her to do a master's degree in anthropology or something, I think. But what I think part of the reason why, and I didn't like the second, where it went with the second half, is because I wanted Naomi to figure things out, because she was such a smart and like spunky character, and assertive personality. Like I wanted to see her figure things out, which, I mean, instead of her being thrown into this sort of action-packed thriller situation where a lot of the time, though she resists, like power is taken away from her, like I wanted to see her kind of infiltrate, like solve, like piece together the mystery, mostly just because I liked her character so much.
And I sort of wondered about that too. And I wondered if perhaps, like, sometimes it's very, sometimes with these sorts of books and with horror books, like, it's very tricky for them to, like, reveal parts of the mystery in a way that almost, like, satisfies the reader. Like, for some of us, we want to have sort of everything revealed, or we want to see them actively, like, discover the mystery. Sometimes I like to have it sort of slowly played out so that I can sort of have time to sort of like work it through, but not be given too much. I feel like it's a very difficult, it's a very difficult task for an author to write a mystery in a way that satisfies the majority of the readers. So I almost feel like Noemi was capable of doing it, and perhaps the frustration would be that, you know, you didn't really see her full capabilities, perhaps as a plot device.
See, are we trying to keep it a surprise what we think? Because I don't think I can have the conversation unless I say what I think.
No, let's stay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm going to throw it on the gauntlet and say that I had the opposite opinion, to be honest. Like, I actually thought that we're going to talk about the metaphor later for everything, which is the thing that I thought was the most interesting. Like, once that clicked for me that this is a lot of metaphor, because I love that in horror things, that I was really impressed with, that she thought of this and all of her research and stuff. But I thought that the writing and the characters were so one-dimensional, and like I felt like maybe the author is early on in her writing career, and like maybe in the future it might be a little more in depth. But like, for example, with Noemi, like, it talks about how she would do anything to be an anthropologist and all this stuff, but it never addresses how she got into it. It never says like where that interest came from. Like, it's just like, okay, this is what she's going to school for, and then we're just supposed to believe that she would do all of this to do it when there was no building of anything. I feel like all of the characters were kind of one-dimensional. I never even could tell if she liked her cousin or not, it would just like she was like, I'll go, but I couldn't like, and sometimes they would do flashbacks to her and her cousin, but before those flashbacks, she didn't even seem like she cared about her. And then she would, I don't know. I just felt like with a lot of the characters, it was like, okay, this is very clearly the bad guy. This is very clearly the one you're supposed to like. I felt like Noemi, like I was very glad that I agree with like what you said. Like she has her own, she doesn't just become like someone who is easily manipulated or influenced. She does take her own control for the most part sometimes. So I did like that, but I still felt like I had no knowledge about who she was as a person or anything, so that like I didn't really care at all what happened to her. So that's my differing opinion. I'm sorry, but that's just yeah.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, I do disagree a little bit with Naomi. Like I did think her personality came through, but I did think that Frances, for instance, and the cousin, what's her cousin's name? I can't remember.
Catalina.
Yeah,
I
did think I did find that they were quite one-dimensional, and actually I was pretty disappointed with Frances because I thought there would be a little bit of more like dissonance in his head about he's been loyal to his family for so long, but that doesn't seem to like play out at all. He just like, you know, leaves with and helps Naomi, who he's just met. Like there's no sort of torn between two decisions. He just always knows what he's going to do. So yeah.
Here's the devil's advocate a little bit. Do you think that it was the author's intention to make those characters one-dimensional because it talked about how the more you were in the house, the more you were ingesting the mushrooms or whatever you want to call them, the fungus, the more you fell under his power, right? So the more your voice kind of gets taken away.
I will agree. To me, that was my take on it as well. It was almost as if the house was, it's a fungus. It was like it was infecting the members of the household. Like even to me, Francis, throughout the book and really at the beginning, to me, he just kind of felt like a ghost. Like he didn't even seem at parts like he was alive or he was dead. He just felt very floating, almost like in this weird world of like in between, like he was sort of, for lack of a better word, just sort of like a zombie or like a vegetable. Like it just didn't seem that he really, and I took that as almost a sign of like infection, a sort of the reason why he was acting that way was because he was not capable of being his own person. So that's why I thought that he was one-dimensional, and why some characters, like you said, Ysenia, like became that way the further it progressed. Like they were sort of battling this illness.
See, for me, I think it was the beginning that really made me put off about the one-dimensional thing, because like I cared less about the people at the house and more about Noemi and Catalina. Like them two, like I wanted to know more about her. Like I want to know, like, why do you like anthropology? Like, why are you doing this school? And like she had the thing with the man in the beginning, and it's like she very much takes control of herself, and I want to know more about that and like more about her relationship with Catalina from the start, so that I feel like they care about each other, or that I care about Catalina at all too. And like, yeah, because I agree with both of you guys. I think that was the one-dimensional with the other people was like kind of like because they were trapped in this like what was it called, the web thing situation.
The gloom.
Yeah, the gloom. But it was Noemi and Catalina that I was just like, I want to know more.
But I thought with Francis, like he's the one character who doesn't like who does something good, or like who doesn't feel like it's okay to kidnap people and draw them into this gloom in order to feed it, and who doesn't think it's okay to like do all these inhumane things to continue the gloom, and we never really learn why is he different than anyone else. And I feel like it's sort of hinted that because his father came from outside this family, that he's like that's what makes him different. But why, like, he grew up his whole life in this house and under the spell of this fungus, so like why did he turn out different than his brother? And also, does it mention why does he speak Spanish? Why is he able to speak Spanish and the others are not? So I can't really remember how long did his dad, how long did he know his father before he died? Yeah. Anyway, details like that, I wish there had been more of them.
Yeah, and I think it was like strange how someone who had been in the gloom for so long like would instantly connect with an outsider the way that he did, like almost from the minute that Noemi comes into the house. I feel like he already has like an interest in her. Like, am I wrong in thinking that? I feel like he just instantly kind of like cleaves to her.
I felt very different about this, I guess, than a lot of you guys, because to me, once we got to the part where we figured out that he was going to be the one that was taken over by his grandfather, I just kind of felt like all along he was looking for an out because he didn't want to be lost, because he knew all along that he was nothing to them. He was just a body, that his personality didn't matter whatsoever to them. And so he all along was just like, I want an out. Like, I want to continue living and surviving. And so as soon as Noemi showed up, he's like, this could be it. This could be my out. I could actually survive and continue being me and not get eaten or whatever happened. So that's kind of how I thought of it with Francis, is he was just depressed and like, he's like, I have no purpose for living. It's just my body that they want. And then he all of a sudden was like, well, maybe not. Maybe I could.
Can you imagine like being him? Oh, I would so totally want it out. Be like, get me out of this.
I know, but I don't know. I really thought that he was moved by love for Noemi for some reason, because he is talking to her, and whenever he talks about her escape, like, he never includes himself as being like someone who's going to escape. He like says he's not going to, and it's Noemi who has to like convince him to try to escape with them, which all of that doesn't even happen anyways. But
I'm trying so hard to find this tweet and I don't know where it is. I don't remember who did it, but somebody tweeted about this and they said something along the lines of that they just read a book where every single character, including a fungus, wants to sleep with the pretty main character. Just because she's pretty, and because everyone thinks she's pretty and everyone wants to sleep with her. I was like, yeah, that's about the book.
Oh, it's true. Okay. So we do have a couple questions we want to get to, and I know that Angela and Sara have some really interesting discussions that they're going to bring to the table in a few minutes. So we've already discussed some things like our main character, Noemi. Did anyone have a favorite character besides Noemi, or was she like your favorite?
I actually really liked Francis.
I felt bad for him, yeah.
So bad for him, because all along he just was like, I'm a nobody, I'm a body. And then he became friends with Noemi because she actually paid attention to him for him, and she wanted to talk to him and learn about his mushrooms and all that stuff. And so I just thought he was a sweet little cinnamon roll character, and I felt terrible for him, and he was just good in a house full of terrible human beings.
He was. And I felt bad for him because he was also like the underdog one, right? Like he just lived in the shadow of the older brother whose name I can't remember. But
starts with a V.
It starts with a V.
The Virgil?
Probably.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate him. Oh my god.
He's a bad human.
Really bad.
He had an effect on me like Joffrey had. I was just like, ugh. Like,
no.
I just felt really unsettled anytime that he appeared. He just made me feel really icky.
And it was always in a sexual way, usually.
Yeah.
Every time I was like, get out of here. You need to leave.
I was taking a bubble bath one night while listening to the book. And I was like,
Oh, she took baths. Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Sorry,
one
it's
time
been
in
a
the
while.
bath.
That took me a second.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
that's funny.
It was very unsettling.
Yeah.
Did you have a little mushroom bath bomb?
Oh no. I'm telling you, mushrooms used to be one of my favorite foods. I really think my opinion has kind of changed a little bit. Because
I'm
of
still pro mushroom.
fair enough. Okay. Well, another question that we had wanted to talk about was the relationship between Noemi and Francis. We've kind of touched on this a little bit, but did you guys feel like it was good and right, or did you think it was weird? What were your thoughts?
I think that it was kind of unnecessary, and I don't know if that's a hot take. Sorry. Sorry if there's any Noemi Francis stands in the building, but yeah, I just kind of felt like I wasn't mad about it, but I also don't think that we really needed it necessarily.
Yeah.
I thought it was a little bit cliche too, but that's okay sometimes. Like I like, but I just think like the like worldly woman falling for the sort of like shy, reserved guy. I've read it before.
Ooh. I don't know if it's a hot take or not, but I agree.
Kristin, you have my back.
Did any of you guys think that too, besides Ysenia, that it was unnecessary?
I thought it was unnecessary, but I mean, I kind of liked it for Francis's sake that he had someone that cared about him and liked him more than his older brother and stuff. Like, I liked it for his sake, but I didn't think it really needed to be there for like the actual like book and plot sake. It was just kind of.
Well, if it wasn't for that, then she would have had to have written Noemi a different way to escape, because she was only able to do so with Francis's help, if I'm remembering right?
Right, but it didn't
he
have
like gave her
romance. It could have just been he could have just done it because he's a good person.
But would that make him, if it was just a friendship, do you think that that would be enough motivation for someone to be able to break all of that stuff that they're wrapped up in and everything? I don't know.
I will say it felt like she was just not that into him. Like he like totally like loved her, and she was just kind of like, he looks kind of dead.
Am I making this up, or did she, when she initially was describing him, she was like, yeah, but he's kind of ugly though, and it's like, why would you say that?
I don't know if she's like specifically, but I got that vibe.
Yeah, but yeah, I just don't think that they needed to be in a romantic relationship, because I look at them both as very self-serving characters. I don't know if any of you agree with that statement. That might be another hot take, but like the only reason why she went to even help her cousin in the first place was because her dad had to convince her by saying, if you go and do this, we'll send you back to school like you've been begging us to do. And so that was when she said, oh, okay, I'll go see what's going on. And then
see, she didn't care until she was bribed.
Yeah,
she was like, I don't care about my cousin. You can go to school. All right, fine, I'll do it.
Yeah.
It's bad that I don't care that she didn't care.
No, not at all. I just, like I said, I want to know.
I don't care that she didn't care about anyone else.
Oh, this is so...
I feel like you're finding some similarities, are you, between you and a character, huh?
This is kind of like what I was trying to say. Like, you said it so well. I think he was so different than what she was used to, so I think it was an adjustment for her, and that was realistic. I definitely think he liked her more than she liked him. Yeah.
Agreed.
That is such a good point. And he was so different. Probably at first she wouldn't even have thought about him as like a romantic interest. Like, you know, once you have your type, you're kind of like set in your ways. But yeah, I think that she was all after like the showy kind of wealthy, like seduce, sweep you off your feet type of guys, you know? And Francis was so like barely even human, pale, ghosty man.
Yeah, that is how he was described, as a pale, ghosty man. And I'm like, well, you know, some might like that, like Twilight, right?
Yep, Edward. Bella would have loved
but
him.
she didn't seem that into that, so.
I also think Naomi was just not really like, she wasn't looking to fall in love with anyone, or like she wasn't looking for a relationship. She just was, I think she was just, you know, happy to do her thing. So I don't know if that makes a difference in the way that she sees the relationship, but like I think she likes him, but she just sees him as one of the many like men that she likes and friends that she has, and she's someone who makes friends easily. So yeah,
I don't know. I feel like when you go through that kind of trauma with someone, though, you
That's
do
true.
have a special bond with them, and it was horrendously traumatic, and he saved her life. So I mean,
yeah, I guess
can
I'm
have those-
thinking more like when they're first getting together at the start of the book, and she's saying things like, "Not that he's not that attractive," but I don't think she means it like as an insult. It's just she's not looking for someone to have a relationship with. So, but you're right. Later on in the book, like towards the second thrillery part when they're escaping together, and that's a little different.
So this is, speaking of the relationship reminds me of Where the Heart Is a little bit. That movie with Natalie Portman. Have you guys seen that movie?
Oh, but I love Natalie Portman.
I haven't either.
Oh no, none of us have seen it. Watch that now.
But now I want to. We can have a top shelf movie night, and then maybe once Mexican Gothic becomes a movie or whatever, we can watch it too.
You know what kind of reminded me of this a little bit with the like, because you know how there was always fog and it was always cold and it was this old house and they had all these rules and stuff like that. Has anybody seen The Others with Nicole Kidman? Something like that? She used to be married to No? You guys, you gotta watch that movie. Like, seriously, if you want to talk about atmosphere and not knowing what's going to happen with the story.
Is it an alien?
No. It's like a ghost story. It's this mom and kids, and they live in this old house, and the daughter is allergic to sun, so they have to keep everything closed and in the dark, and yet there are some things that might be in the house that is not them, and they have to lock all the rooms behind them, and they're in this like fog, and then all these things start happening, and you're like, I think I don't know where this is going, and then you don't, and it's awesome. So that, if you liked Mexican Gothic, but it got too weird for you, this is more based in like, I wouldn't say reality, but like if you believe in ghosts, I guess reality, but like, you know, so it's kind of a similar vibe, but like on a lower level there.
Oh, I can't.
I have added both.
You can't. It's so good.
Scary books, like horror, anything, that's totally fine. But I cannot do scary movies because then I can't play Home Alone anymore. So
yeah,
there is such a difference between scary books and scary movies. Like, I'll just put that out there, because scary books, you basically control how scary it gets, right? With your brain, I mean, for the most part. But in the movies, you have no control over it.
It's the music, I swear.
Yeah.
And the fake out scare before the real scare.
I know.
Oh, and jump scares are just the worst.
Jump scares are so cheap.
Well, they get me every time.
That's because they go,
it's just a cheap device and I just can't stand them, but I love them.
Okay, speaking of the relationship, this is such a good point too. It also makes so much sense that Francis would like her more. She's kind of like his first crush, which is always so intense. But Naomi dates a lot, and she's very much in control of her romantic life. I think that really explains it.
That's what I was thinking when I read it too, yeah.
I hadn't thought about it like that, but yeah, Francis has been sheltered forever and ever. So it makes a lot of sense.
Doesn't he have experience? Didn't they bring other women too, besides Catalina, or was Catalina the first one?
I think they tried.
I think they brought other women for Virgil. I don't
Yeah,
know if they
So
did.
you've
Yeah,
probably
Virgil.
seen them, but they were like, yeah, Virgil's.
Brought family.
Virgil.
Yeah.
The cousin, the daughter of the doctor, and
And
Yeah.
like all these stillbirths or something.
yeah,
like
she died during childbirth or something, right? I'm pretty sure.
yeah, like none of them could have babies because they're all like inbred. Of course, you can't.
Yeah.
Also, why did they eat the baby? I don't.
To
I,
ingest
Oh,
all
that
the
was the
spores.
thing for me. I just couldn't. I was like, this is disgusting. I couldn't with the eating the babies.
why did they eat the baby?
But I think it was.
I didn't
to,
really
like,
get that part either.
Wasn't it to ingest more of the spores or something, or to
Yeah.
like
Something
to
like that.
return it to the gloom or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's to get yourself more
Yeah.
like into that.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That kind
Because
of.
that
I guess it's not magic.
Yeah.
It is, but
disgusting.
What's that? What's that? That quote? Cool motive, still murder. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so next we're gonna quickly talk about the ending. Yes, that sums it up better than I could. There you go.
There was like a solid like amount of time where that was my face.
Yeah.
Just the green, like I just couldn't, like, even just hearing eating babies.
Yeah, I had to pause the audiobook and walk away for a little bit. I was like, what?
Was too much.
I've seen that in a couple books.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
like, it wasn't quite as shocking to me, I don't think, because this isn't the first time that this has been a thing.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't read enough horror, I think, probably. But it makes me not want to read much more horror because I don't know. I can't.
Yeah, it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
yeah, I think that also had to do with marketing because this was because of, I think, the title Gothic. I think it was marketed as a Gothic novel, but I don't think it is. Again, I'm gonna throw my hand here. I thought that the writing was a little. I felt like she was trying too hard because remember how she referenced a couple of Gothic books in here? She was like, "Oh yeah, remember Wuthering Heights and remember this and this," and I was like, "Yeah, just because you remind me of it doesn't mean I think this one feels like that." Because it didn't. Like, I didn't feel. I felt like this just kind of like checkmarked everything, but I didn't really get those vibes that much. But and that's why I think that, like, especially because everybody said like you felt such a strong shift in tone of the book. That, like, if people that like Gothic novels aren't normally like this. And so I feel like this should have been marketed as horror. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that affected anything because I don't know. I haven't really seen many people's reviews. I don't know if people loved it or didn't like it. But if you go in expecting a Gothic manor type book and then you get this, I think you're more likely to not like it.
I think that was
Yeah,
the
well,
No.
Yeah.
I
familiar
hoped
with
it
the
was
genre at
going
all.
to. Yeah. I'd hoped it was going to go to somewhere like more psychological instead of like supernatural. Or like I don't mind supernatural but this was like full out supernatural. Like I don't mind little hints and like questions of whether there's supernatural activity involved. But like I prefer the answer to me more like psychological. But actually, similarly to what you said, I did think the first half of the novel felt very Gothic, but I was kind of disappointed because the title's Mexican Gothic. So there's almost like a promise that they're going to do something different with the Gothic setting, because Gothic settings typically in a British mansion house, or like it's a European kind of genre. And so I was like, ooh, Mexican Gothic. Like I thought there was going to be more Mexico involved in the setting. And yes, like Naomi's character is Mexican, so we get it there. We get like a few trips into the town, but like most of the book is in this old British like manor house with British characters. So I just wish there had been more Mexican, like more. I wish the setting had been, I guess. But then Angela brought up the metaphor in the book, which I hadn't put together. So maybe reading it that way, I would have.
Because they literally brought dirt from Europe too.
From
like
Europe,
like that's why I think the colonialism kind of came in there, because they literally took everything from there and destroyed their minds, destroyed their people, destroyed their land, and
That's so
But I guess I
clever.
wish there had been more a little more focus, because that was true and there was that metaphor, but the focus was still very much on that family, like the Doyles. And I wish we got a little bit more of like the townspeople, or like the miners, the anonymous miners who had all died, or like I wish we'd had some personal connection other than that of Naomi.
We have a few interesting comments I want to address. Bridget said, I changed my answer from the beginning. I don't think Mexican Gothic was a top shelf read for any of those.
No, take that. I'm just kidding.
I still think Sara could surprise us.
I honestly think that Sara is going to say yes. I have a feeling, but I don't know.
I'm holding some stuff in. Okay.
Why? Just tell us.
Well, because I don't know. It's just fizzling, and it's about to come out, but it's not coming out yet. But it almost did, because a lot of what Laura said I wanted to talk about, but now I forget what I was gonna say.
What about Stephanie? Like, was it for you?
I didn't think it was top shelf, but I actually really liked it. But I like horror, and I like Gothic, and I like thriller, so I enjoy all those book types. So I think that helps, like going into it liking all those types of books, because it's kind of a mix.
That makes sense. Yeah. And then I think it's considered a Gothic horror, which kind of makes sense, because for me it felt like a mix of both. Yeah, I never really paid attention to how they were marketing it, honestly. Just looking at the cover, I definitely thought it was like a romance, like mystery. But I can see, like, if you thought it was going to be Gothic horror, definitely.
Yeah, I didn't know it was going to be horror going in, actually.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was going to be horror either.
And so that was shocking.
Well,
You didn't know it was going to be horror?
I went in knowing that it was going to be horror, because when I was on the I don't know if you guys pay attention to this or not, but on Goodreads it'll show you like the top shelves of how people are shelving it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I usually go by, more than like what the actual like blurb says, or whatever the case may be. But a lot of people were shelving this as horror.
That's interesting. I didn't know you could look
a good way to do that.
I'm gonna double check that. But I'm pretty sure.
I just thought of something that Laura said that I wanted to comment on.
Say it.
Okay. So I think I talked to Angela about this at some point. I don't really know. But I think you said somewhere that you wanted this to be more psychological.
Yeah.
If this was psychological, I was going to throw this against the wall, because I almost swore. I hate when it ends up being in someone's head. Whenever I'm like reading this and I'm like, okay, it's ghost. Okay, it's this. But let me guess, it's a psychiatric. Like, no, I don't want that. If I wanted that, then I would just like, I don't know, not read a book. But this is a book. You have to make this supernatural. I have to believe this is supernatural. And if it isn't, then sorry.
I don't think you would like this.
How did you forget that?
I don't know.
Yo, I love the silent patient.
I just was so like, oh, I want to hear Laura's perspective. And then I was just like, wait a minute.
I don't know if I
always mean that. Yeah, I don't know that.
Yeah, I don't mean like in her, that everything was in her head. I mean more like, I guess when I was reading it, I thought that the spores of the fungus, I knew there was fungus involved, and I thought it was more like spores of the fungus were in the house, and it was like, I don't know, messing with something with the dynamic. So like, I guess I don't mean psychological as in like Naomi's
Like
Naomi,
just perceiving this inside of her mind.
Yeah, or just like some sort of cult. Well, I mean, there was a cult mentality around the family, but I guess what I mean is something more like, I actually find it more creepy when it's real than when it's supernatural, you know? I guess by psychological I mean something that like actually has that there's actually a like realistic explanation for the things that are happening, which I
if
find
there was
more
a
creepy
natural
than, like,
protest going on, I would have just
and I
just would have just
there.
like.
I'm curious, is that because you're so scientific at your job and stuff that you want that not to be in your
Show me something I don't know.
Give me the paranormal.
I don't want this to be something where it's like, hey, I've read this in textbooks. I've read that this could happen. I've read that, you know, like that there can be like a psychological effect of mushrooms on a person. Like, I want it to be ghosts. I want this to be something that is not proven. I want it to be something outside the realm of possibility. And because when I want like nonfiction, I read nonfiction. So I was just like, this has got to be ghosts.
Did you not
This
think
has got to be
I
supernatural.
But did you not think that it was the answer was to what was going on to me was just like too over the top, like this would never happen, unrealistic. Like I think when I said
didn't
earlier,
want
like, I don't mind
it to
hints
be
of supernatural. I don't mind like I don't mind hints of supernatural, but to me, this was just like the solution of what it was just so like mushrooms would never do this. It was just too like unrealistic for me anyway. It's just too over the top.
Yeah, I felt like the mushrooms, I don't know, like for me it almost, I don't know anything much about mushrooms really. I know that they can have like some kind of psychedelic effects or whatever. So when I was reading it, I was like, oh man, could mushrooms like make people go crazy like this? But then once it got to like the gloom and like how they were all like connected and can switch bodies, I was like, oh, okay, this is straight up. But it was creepy at first, you know, whenever there's a possibility in my head that mushrooms could have such an effect, like to bring a person to psychosis or something. So like I agree with you, Laura. I think that if it's like it feels more realistic, then it's more scary to me.
There was sort of, because I studied biology way back, like a few years ago, and there are like mushrooms
What just happened?
The kitty.
What?
Your cat, Angela.
I saw a little paw reach over.
Yeah, she wants me to pet her, and then I pet her, and she like swipes at me. I'm like, do you want me to pet you or do you not?
Yeah. I just looked it up on Goodreads, and the top 2 genres that people have been shelving this as have been horror and historical fiction. So, yeah.
Historical fiction.
And Gothic is the 4th most popular.
Huh.
But there's a pretty wide margin of like 2,000.
Well, there's a comment that talks about that too. Like, if you can pin that.
Was it this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Janaya, I stopped at 60% because, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, my alarm. I stopped at 60% because I thought it would be more gothic. The cover seemed more romance focused. I don't read horror. Yes, that was me too.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the cover being a little, it matches it, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know what I would have done instead. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I could see how the cover could be a little bit misleading.
And 60% is right whenever it gets funky with the mushrooms.
Yeah.
So
It's funky with the mushrooms. Yeah.
Okay, I'm excited to get to this part really quick, especially because I know we have some good discussions coming from it, and then we might have to wrap it up. We'll see. So the question we were going to talk about was, what do you think the author's purpose was in writing this book? How well do you think she got it across? We'd mentioned some kind of colonialism and toxic family things. So if you guys want to talk about that.
Do you mind if I just read the author's response to that question? Because I thought it was perfect. It's from her mouth.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course.
So in this interview, this is a spoiler, like we've been talking about. And the question that she was asked is, many Gothics explore toxic families, but in this case, the Doyles literally and figuratively poison the community they exploit. Were they based on any real family, or were they meant to represent colonialism? And her answer was that Mexico is a country that has been constantly in the thrall of colonizers, and they have often exploited its mineral riches. It started with the Spaniards, but it didn't end there. The first mining strike in North America happened in Rio del Monte due to poor labor conditions. Colonization worked in other insidious ways. In the 1850s, the British government plotted ways to steal Mayan ruins. Around that time, 2 young children with a congenital disease taken from El Salvador were exhibited in London as Aztec children and used to theorize on ideas of race mixing, and biological fitness. Eugenicist discourse, which lasted well into the mid-20th century and beyond around the world, often mixed with notions of race. The Doyles are an invention, but the eugenicist principles spouted by the patriarch of the family were real. And she talks about like how, that was historical fiction, how she draws that in the 50s, and how like the idea of colonialism and eugenics, that part and the toxic family, it all kind of ties in really well with the metaphor of the fungus. And they think that they're what didn't the people that it came from think he was like a god or something too? Like they all kind of looked at him as like the god type figure, when in reality, when they came and they brought all their stuff, even their dirt, to Mexico, and they're the ones who infected and killed and suffered through the mines, the nature, the people, everything. And then ultimately they were the problem and the sickness, and they killed themselves. And yeah, I just thought that like that metaphor, like I mentioned this before, and that like I wasn't really on board. It was kind of weird to me. And then once that, like, I don't remember when it clicked in my head, but I think I just like put the book down for a second and I was like, why this? Like, why? Why fungus? And then I thought about it and I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes a lot of sense in this context. And then it was, to me, a lot more clear where some of the inspiration of her idea for this story came from.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sara was going to talk about the eugenics aspect of it as well, since that was such a big factor with the patriarch of the family.
Yeah, eugenics is pretty bad stuff. So it's like, it does have a very like interesting theory behind it, which is to sort of, so natural selection by like Charles Darwin is basically just the survival of the fittest, right? So, and it's a natural process. It happens in nature, and it's what a lot of evolutionary theory is based off of. And we would learn we've learned so much from it. Like Laura was talking about how like that is a hugely important and significant book on the origin of species. So Charles Darwin, his relative, I believe it was his cousin, who was a statistician and who was a fan of his work, wanted to apply this, but to purify like humanity, and basically take natural selection and just apply it to, okay, well, if natural selection just naturally selects for the fittest within a population, then why don't we just decide what is going to be our desirable traits. And then from there, like, I feel like they thought that they were doing a moral and ethical thing by trying to sort of have a population that just had the strongest among them, right? But where it all falls apart is just like, who even decides what is a desirable trait? Where do we cut the line? Like, where do we stop that? And like, do we, yeah.
It's also interesting because, like, what's fittest in nature means who's most likely to reproduce and, like, have children. So, like, social Darwinism, it doesn't make sense in that as soon as you're not reproducing, like, you're not fit anymore. Like, yeah, so it's such a creepy idea. Like, it doesn't make any sense, but yeah, it's such a creepy.
And forced sterilization of those who they don't deem desirable. Like, which is incredibly messed up. Yeah.
But that sort of thinking, like, it's interesting because it can be traced through to all sorts of horrible, like, humanitarian atrocities that have been committed, like, all over the world, even like in, you know, like, even in the way
Holocaust.
that First Nations people were treated in Canada, and the way that the Holocaust played out, and yeah, such a creepy idea.
Well, and wasn't the fact that Francis and Noemi survived because they actually, well, I don't know how much who Francis' father was, but they were Mexican for at least Francis, at least part of the way, and wasn't he talking about the I can't remember his name, but the patriarch, the old man, like, wasn't he talking about how, like, they sometimes needed to pull it in, and they were like, so on one hand they, like, thought highly of them, but then on the other hand they were like, oh no, you're nothing as good as us, but then we also need you. It was a really strange, again, like, who decides it? It's just the whims of what you think. And the fact that they were able to break free from this, you know, and colonialism also in Mexico, but also it can even go back to wherever it was that he stole the fungus from. He stole that from those group of people living in the cave. He took that too, and then that didn't work out, you know, and they just go on to continually hurt and infect all of these people that they're, you know, it's just.
And it's bizarre that something so, like, arbitrary as one person's, like, opinion of what is beautiful or whatever, what is best, can be so, like, powerfully destructive. Like, but in history even, and maybe that is this truly scariest part about this book, is that the awful beliefs that are perpetrated by, like, the patriarch with the whole mushroom thing, like, actually does happen. The whole eugenics belief that, you know, like, we've seen it attempted before in the past, and it's been one of the most destructive things, I think, in the world.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's like a pretext in order for people to justify doing all these horrible things, I guess, is this reasoning that doesn't really play out if you think about it, but that's been used as justification for so many horrible things.
I think it's really interesting that I think it's just really interesting that she decided to tell this story now. Like, why do you think that is? Like, why was this an important, and why was it told?
See,
still a problem we're facing to this day. Not learning.
Yep.
Because we're not learning anything.
Nope. What were you gonna say, Laura?
I see.
I do basically the same thing. Like, I mean, obviously, people in we don't talk about eugenics in public discourse anymore, but it's the same sort of, like, I guess it's the same sort of rhetoric when people are trying to say, like, these people are worthy of being American, Canadians, whatever country. Like, these people are, you know, these people are worthy of rights and these people aren't, and it's like it's the same sort of thinking, I guess.
Yeah, it's very
some people are
interesting
fitter.
because it almost sort of, it's interesting because I feel like in society, there are certain rules and regulations that are done that will benefit people and help them become healthy and thus reproduce and have successful families and thrive in society. And those who are not necessarily provided those same benefits, what are they left to do? Like, how are they able to remain fit, remain thriving, remain like, what the hell are we doing? And is it a sort of modern day social eugenicist
Because I think that's a
sort of
lot
principle that we're doing?
I think that's so interesting, because that's a lot of like capitalist thinking, is that the people who have power and wealth have power and wealth because they deserve to have power and wealth, and so they deserve to run our societies. And people who are disenfranchised or poor, they are that way because they're not as fit as, like, it's so close to eugenicist thinking. And I know people don't like, that's the extreme. But I do think, I do think people think that way, even if they're not aware of it. And I'm sure I've even thought that way. Or when people are super defensive about talking about the privilege that they have in society, and they say, well, I suffer too. It's as if people like to think that if you're wealthy and doing well, it's because you deserve it. And if you're not doing well, it's because, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And I think that this author has written other books from, like, wasn't there one about gods, Aztec gods? Yeah. Yeah. So I think also this is her specialty, yeah, exactly. So it was good.
But I do wish they'd had more focus. Like, I do wish we learned a little bit more about Mexico, and I do wish the book had a little bit been more ingrained in that setting. I don't know if anyone else felt that way.
I did. We got little glimpses when she visited the doctor in town, and then that other woman who made the teas, but like, we haven't even brought up those characters because they were such small characters.
Yeah.
I like the doctor.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to be a bigger part of it, to be honest.
I thought so too.
Which doctor?
The doctor from the town, the Mexican.
Oh yeah, that one too. No, yeah.
The other one, I don't know.
I wanted to read this comment because it brought up a good point, kind of what we were saying. I totally agree. I think that when you have money and power, you can control the narrative. So if you deem power and money as the fittest, then it completely changed the narrative.
I mean, they killed hundreds of miners, and since they were so powerful in the town, no one could say anything about it. No one even went and got the bodies. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah.
That they could get away with it just because they're so powerful and rich.
But then, like, we see this happen, I feel like, still. And so it's like, that is the truly horrifying part of this book, is that the evils that are in it are still real somehow. Like, and
I think that's part of why, like, when Laura and Sarah were talking about earlier, like, how realistic you can get. And I think that, like, the fact that some of this could be real, and the historical part was real in the colonization and the invasion almost, like, of Mexico, that, like, the fact that, I don't know, it's a little more realistic that it potentially could be like that. And it kind of almost makes it more horrifying to see the impact, because, like, a lot of times when you have, like, a rich wealthy family, you'll be like, oh, they're paying these miners, so they're treating the townspeople well and stuff. But then when you actually see the truth of it in a horror metaphor, where they're like these nasty, like, they're infecting people, they're doing all of these horrible things, like, it makes the horror of, like, what actually happened, and I'm sure still happens to this day, that much more. It's easier for people to sometimes see how harmful it is and not just be blinded by like the whole money and power and kind of situation.
What I hope is that the book does not provide all of the answers. I hope that people who read this will use this as sort of a platform to do further reading into subjects and topics that really may not be able to be addressed in this 320-page book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's kind of what You Read My Mind wrote too. I think a lot of people wish that there was more Mexican influences in the book, but I think she told a story about Mexico, and even though it wasn't the story that people expected, it was important. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, again, like that's also too, like, is that our own thoughts of like, oh, well, just because it has that location, we want that just because we want to see more. But like, that's not the author's obligation. The author is trying to just tell a story. And especially when it has such important themes and like historical situations, like, yeah, who are we to be like, oh no, give me more of your culture? Like, no, like that's not required. She can do it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but like,
that's how I felt.
I guess I just think that having more of an insight into the lives of like the anonymous miners and the townspeople, I think it would like help people make the connection with that metaphor. And I just think it would, with the metaphor for colonialism, I just think when you're like being emotionally invested in people other than Naomi and the family would help like get that message across, maybe.
Yeah, because I'm going to be completely honest, before I didn't even click the two together until you brought it up, like before we even got on the live today. I mean, I think I would have, I hope I would have eventually gotten to that point, but I think when you take it at face value, you're not really, at least I can only speak for myself, I'm not really like taking this conversation from at face value, if that makes any sense. But now that after this discussion, like I completely see the intentions and I completely see everything that was brought up in a more subtle way.
It makes you wonder too, like how much are the villagers to blame for what was going on in that house, you know? Because even like the woman who had the herbs and who made like the antidote thing, like she had to have known exactly what was going on, and like if she had the power to make an antidote, was she to blame for not doing something before to help stop it? Like it makes you think a lot about, you know, people who were living near concentration camps as well. And when we talk about, you know, what was their role in everything, like I feel like it's a similar discussion.
Because sorry, go ahead.
I mean, how much are any of us to blame?
Yeah.
With what goes on in the world and what we see.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's true. Like I feel like that's a good point. You could either take it for face value as a horror story, or you could, like, because it could just be a horror story if you just read it, like you said, Ysenia, for face value, because it is technically just a horror story, but you know, it just depends on, So can I ask then, if you were just reading it as a horror story, like what was your takeaway? Like what were your thoughts before you thought about the metaphor stuff then?
Well, I'm not somebody who reads from this genre at all. So again, I can only speak for myself. I was satisfied as for this to be a horror novel. Like I felt like it set out what it set out to do in terms of the actual genre that she wrote in. But then again, I don't know. I feel like I sound kind of dumb when I say that, but I digress.
No,
that's what a book is for. Yeah,
I agree.
more terrified at the colonialism and the eugenics part of it more now. I think that thoroughly terrifies me more than like the fungus that was taking over everybody's minds on this story. So yeah.
I actually I have to leave in about like a couple minutes, so I'll just give you, I'm gonna be gone soon.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
But this was fun.
Do you want to tell us if it was a top shelf read for you?
No, it wasn't a top shelf read. I did enjoy reading it. I mean, I didn't dislike it. I much prefer the first half of the book to the second half of the book. And I think I've already said I thought the kind of the resolution to the mystery and what was going on in the house was a little bit far-fetched for like my taste. But yeah, I would love to see it as a TV show or miniseries though. I think it would work much better.
Yeah,
in that
I
way.
agree.
Yeah. But I did enjoy it. So actually maybe I'll go out on that note. So
okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, Laura.
Bye.
Okay, so we do have a few more questions, so I'll just ask you guys, do you want to go ahead and do a couple more questions, or would you rather wrap it up with is this a top shelf read? Because this is getting on to be our longest show, so like just let me know what you think.
I'm fine to keep going if you are. There's a lot to talk about with this one.
Yeah, I'm fine either way.
Okay.
I'm good to keep going. But can I be back in like 5 seconds?
Yes.
I'll be right back.
No, you have to stay.
Okay, so do you think we want to move on from the eugenics and colonialism? I mean, we have covered a lot there. Okay.
Yeah, I think
so. The next question was just, what did you enjoy most about the book, and what did you enjoy the least?
I think I enjoyed the cover the most.
Oh no.
It's so pretty.
So pretty.
The thing that I enjoyed the most was Noemi as a character. Was hands down, like I could read from her perspective. I could read from her perspective again.
Yeah. I liked how she I feel like it was celebrated that she was kind of the type of girl who just liked to date different people, because I feel like sometimes that's demonized. Like people will say derogatory things about the type of girl who just dates around. But I think we have the decision to do that, and I don't think you're good or bad if you want to just date around a lot.
Yeah.
And so I liked that she was kind of celebrated for that, especially because wasn't this the
1950s, right?
Something.
I think it's
I think it was 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was sorry, keep going.
No, I was just saying, so I feel like that was even less celebrated back then.
I was jokes aside, I think my favorite part was the importance of that message being told and talked about in the 1900s in Mexico, and again, I'm sure there are things still going on like this to this day. Very easy. I mean, there is. So I liked that. I liked that message and what the story was able to teach and bring attention to. I liked that a lot.
Yeah. I love a story that takes place in a kind of dark and spooky mansion. Even though I don't like horror, I love that. If any of you have read Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen, oh, it's so good. And it has similar vibes of just going somewhere kind of spooky and things happening there. So I love the atmosphere of the book, the settings, and I think that. What was that?
I have a light. I have a light, and it's attacking me.
Oh my gosh! I thought it was the mushrooms.
It's my own horror movie. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh gosh. Yeah. So that I lost my train of thought, but it's fine. It's fine. I was rambling.
You were talking about a Jane Austen book?
Northanger Abbey.
Yeah, and how it has a spooky spooky atmospheric vibes. Oh yeah, the author. I feel like she did like atmosphere and description really, really well. Like, because I mean, a lesser writer wouldn't have been able to get such a reaction, I think, from me. And I genuinely think I will always remember that creepy scene in the basement where the lady is like buzzing and her carcass is like frozen and like a scream or something.
Yeah.
So any other favorite things or least favorite things?
No, I agree. I love the atmosphere. I think that was probably my favorite part as well, just because it kind of put you in a little bit of the spooky vibe. So that was fun. Yeah, I think so. I think least favorite for me probably...
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, you can go.
Well, my least favorite thing is, okay, so when I was reading this book, there's just random stuff that kept happening in my apartment. So, for instance, my camera, it just fell and broke. I was like, what the F is this? And then, like, my lights kept flickering. And then just, like, random stuff kept happening. And I was like, oh, my God. Oh, my God. The fungus is getting to me. But it was also my favorite thing, so.
Oh, I felt so bad about your camera.
It was an excuse to get a new one.
Yeah.
What was your least favorite, Stephanie?
Yeah.
Oh, for me, I think my least favorite was probably the transition from that beginning part where it doesn't feel like it's horror to the horror. Because it, like we have talked about, it almost feels like it's separate parts of the book. Like you have part one that is very different, and then you have part two that's the horror part. And I liked both of them, honestly. I really enjoyed it. I just think it didn't mesh as well as I would have liked.
Yeah.
So that was kind of...
It was maybe abrupt.
Yeah.
Maybe she was going for shock value. Because, like, if that was the case, I was shocked. I remember I was on a walk and I was listening to the audiobook, and when it got to that part, I literally like stopped and just like my jaw was like dropped, and I'm sure people were worried about me and concerned. But, you know, like, so if she was going for shock value, she did it.
Yeah, that's true.
I can just imagine you on the walk.
That was it, exactly. Oh, man.
Wait, did my cat move his pumpkin? Is that what you were laughing about?
Yes.
Oh my God, I didn't even know that.
Oh no, guys. Pray for Bridget.
Oh, be careful.
Oh.
For next live show, we'll know.
Oh no. That is a risky business, Bridget.
You're cooking them. It's fine.
Don't breathe them in too much.
Give it a nice saute.
I do love sauteed mushrooms.
Oh yeah, those are good.
Oh, we have another comment as well. Sorry to change the topic back to romance, but I wanted to note that Noemi kept thinking about the guy from back home, even though she treated him kind of bad. So maybe she really does like Francis. Interesting.
Interesting.
I love that guy from back home a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would their like relationship fall under? Is it like friends to lovers? I don't even know.
I don't know.
Is it just like mild to vague interest? I don't know.
I say that we call it just like a paranormal romance because Francis is clearly a ghost. So her and Francis are just, yeah.
Well, he was almost like a body switch, so it is kind of paranormal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that comment.
Me too.
I'm gonna call it acquaintance to lovers.
Ooh.
Boy toy for Noemi.
Boy toy for Noemi. Uh-huh.
Just like keeps her entertained.
That's funny.
That's sad.
Keeps her entertained, alive. Yeah.
Okay, this is a question. What changes to the story, if any, would you make?
I would do what the person just commented. I agree.
What would you do?
Janaea, did I say that right? Just commented, I wanted Noemi and the doctor to like each other.
Yes.
I wanted the
yeah.
doctor and Noemi to get through that together too.
Yeah.
That would have been great because he was
Yeah.
reasonable and he could have
Yeah.
just got her right out of that.
Yeah.
But he didn't. I feel like he had a responsibility to
I don't think he
Noemi.
knew because he's new to the town. Remember, he said
Yeah.
he just got in there, so I don't think he knew. I think he knew there was weird stuff, but I don't think he really knew what was
Right.
how bad they were.
Yeah.
I thought that would have been really cool.
That would have been
But-
so cool.
How could he? Well, I guess didn't they give something to Catalina so that whenever the doctor showed up, she was not as weird or bad?
He
I don't
just controlled her, so she was. More weird, right?
I thought Sara would like that comment too.
know.
Stop talking to him. She might, stop talking to him.
She's like, not worth my time.
I can take care of this
Totally
myself.
idea.
Leave me to
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. Okay, so would you guys change anything else about the book?
I'm thinking, but I don't know how I would do it, but just making the transition between the first and the second half a little more smooth.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily know because I think if you sprinkle too much of kind of the more horror aspect of it, almost cheapens the story a little bit and it takes away from the discussions that we've had about like eugenics, colonialism. So I don't necessarily.
And even rape, like that was something that, I mean, of course I could have done without those scenes, but like that's something important to, yeah. I agree.
I could have done without the baby eating. No, that's fine. Like
You
we were
watched
just,
the
like,
new Sabrina. You like weird things like that.
Yeah, I read The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, the comics. Oh my gosh. That's insane. Have you read those?
It's a little much.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm like, you read those. Come on, Sarah.
I stop at babies, okay? We're good.
Draw the line at
leave those babies
Kill the adults all
alone.
you want. Eat them. They've got a good life.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
There was
There's a little
cannibalism
too.
in that.
Oh.
There was.
Yes.
So disturbing.
I don't like incest either.
No.
It was never a good time for incest.
Clear books.
Don't even. Oh, did you say Cassandra Clare?
Yes.
I didn't have to bring her up. I was like, don't get started.
You're like, refer to this video and that video and that video.
Oh, gosh. I feel like I have that conversation about Cassandra Clare every month because I do.
Yeah, because it's weird.
Well, we have strong opinions on the baby eating. Look, definitely my least favorite part as well. Awful, yeah.
I know. Yeah, it was so
When is
graphic.
it ever okay? You know?
Do you think that was necessary?
No.
Well,
No. I feel like
No!
I know why it happened.
Necessary?
Like, obviously it wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
I mean, no, but it did make a point. I mean, like didn't people like do that?
Yeah, because that's what I mean. Like, I don't know the historical part of it, but
I've heard it,
that happened in different various ceremonies and things like that.
Yeah.
like sacrifices, like infant sacrifices.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Other books I've read too, it's a thing where they will at least kill the babies, and sometimes they'll like either drink their blood or they'll like eat the placenta or they'll eat the baby.
Yeah.
Okay, like we have to put a disclaimer on placentas. That we growth and dissection, like this is in formalin. Do not make into pills. Do not ingest. You will die.
I know.
It's
But
not
you're
that
not supposed
healthy.
to, because a lot of people do. You're not.
If they're
so-
in formalin, you will legit like no. Because there's okay, so like I don't know, is this interesting? So like when once a mother has a placenta, she delivers the placenta. The placenta has to be examined, right? And they have to say, okay, well, if the baby's like vitals are low, like, is there a placental cause of this? Like, is there placental insufficiency? Or like, I do perinatal autopsies on fetuses. Like, I did some today, FYI. And we have to know, like, is the cause of death the fetus? Is it the placenta? Or is it the mother? Like, what is the cause of death on this? And so we get placentas. Some laboratories, they get fresh placentas and they will dissect them. And for us, we will get it in formalin, which is incredibly hazardous. You are not supposed to have or consume formalin. You might die. So, like, we tell people, like, do not consume placentas. We can release the placenta to the patient, but we have to say, like, we do not, you cannot eat this. You cannot make this into pills. So that's a little bit much, but that's what I do.
The fact that there's around that is just crazy to me.
Like, okay.
That's weird.
Yeah. So, like, if you have a fresh placenta, go
if you want to, have at it. I did not
go at it. But if it's in formalin,
I didn't encourage it, but I'm like, if you want.
If it's a fresh placenta from chorioamnionitis, maybe not. Maybe it's not a healthy placenta.
I'm just picturing like a sign in the market that's like fresh placenta. Oh, God.
Oh, those Kardashians, they'll do anything.
I thought placenta was a health food. Like
that's what I was saying. I thought people did eat that, but
yeah,
I
well,
mean,
you can.
People eat it.
You can.
Yeah.
I wouldn't eat other people's. You don't know what kind of stuff they got.
Can I just point out what we're talking about right now?
FDA regulated.
Our food we talk about for this episode.
Are we gonna have it be mushrooms or placenta?
Both.
Mushrooms might look a little more appropriate for post.
Legit. This is what I do for a living, and people were like, "Okay, well, baby eating may be necessary." I think not.
My husband just came home and I see his head go. What are you talking about right now?
This is what happens when you have a
We should come up with the Top Shelf Society cookbook, and one of the recipes has to do with placenta.
No, hard pass.
Or how about we do like a gelatin version?
Like make it for Halloween.
Yeah.
Or like people do like face serums and creams of placenta on the
I imagine
on the
there's
face.
a smell.
Well, I guess that's the point.
Again,
Like, if
if
they
it's
were
a healthy
trying,
placenta, go at it, you know?
but if they were trying to, okay, so if the theory was that they were eating, I don't even want to say the sentence. If the theory was that they were eating the baby because it would give them more of the spores, if the baby, if I understand this correctly, the placenta is essentially like what keeps the baby nourished. So
alive.
wouldn't they accomplish the same thing from eating the placenta and they didn't have to do that?
You know, I don't know if they were thinking about
I don't know the rules about this.
They weren't thinking clearly, I don't think.
I don't want to know the rules about this.
Yeah, this.
I feel like
You guys are just making me think about this way too much.
Yeah.
This is what happens when I open my mouth.
No, like the science part is interesting. It's just the other part is a little.
Yeah, no, this is great. I can't wait for our placenta recipe. That's gonna be delicious.
Nope.
I ain't got
I don't
one.
even like mushrooms, y'all. Come on.
I love mushrooms.
You're like I end at mushrooms.
I don't even go to mushrooms.
Okay, well, I'll move on to the next question. Do you guys want to do another question now, or do you want to do the top shelf thing?
Can we do one lighthearted thing that doesn't end on eating placentas and babies?
I swear to God, I open my mouth and it's like, let's talk about something lighthearted.
No.
I just talked for 5 minutes.
We've had some deep conversations.
No, Sarah, I haven't laughed this hard all day, probably in the past few days, so I'm good. Thank you.
You're
Well,
welcome.
I'll say what I said in the group chat. This is so weird.
Is it like body horror when it's like that? Is that what that's called, or no? I don't know.
Body what?
Okay, there's like types of books that are called body horror.
I think that was more the scene of the old man in bed and how it was like pustules and stuff like that. Like that's more body horror where it like describes kind of horrific things happening to your body.
That was horrible.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what that falls under. Like, yeah.
Have any of you read that Wilder Girls?
No, but it's on my list.
Yeah, I've heard it called.
I'm curious to hear what you say about that.
Oh, me too.
Okay, so this is a good question. Would you read a sequel to this story? And if you would you prefer it to feature Noemi and Francis, or would you want a story in the same world with new characters?
I'm very adamant that I don't want this to get a sequel. The best.
Any sequel?
Sorry?
Any sequel at all? Like if it was like different characters, do you think it was just, this is the book, that's it?
I just want this to be, I like how it ended open-ended. I like that it was, I can't even, my brain is mush from this book still, but
You're still recovering.
Yeah, but I just don't think that this needs a sequel. How do you guys feel? Am I the only
This is probably going to be like a very unpopular opinion, but I could do with a prequel. I think it'd be cool to like see them before they came over and like have that type of story. So
yeah,
I think that'd be a really cool horror.
I agree. It seemed even more like messed up in the past as well. So like a beginning one would have, I think, been more horrific, and to like get more into those sisters that the guy like married both of them. I would be interested in that.
Yeah, if it was like from the point of view of the second sister that he married or something.
Yeah, that would be good.
I don't know. Or maybe
I would love a prequel as well.
Lives, like hundreds of years ago.
I would love a prequel.
Yeah, I'd like a prequel.
I could get behind a prequel too.
I can't decide if I want a sequel because part of me, like, I really did think Francis was kind of sweet, and like I would love to see like life just get really, really good for him. And then, like, it get ripped apart by some like remaining fungus. But then it gets better in the end. Like I could maybe be down for that.
Plot twist: they have fungus babies, and the babies eat them this time.
Whoa!
Too bad.
Okay, well, I guess that leads us to our last question. Is this a top shelf read? Does anyone want to start first? I guess I should start first.
Kristin?
Yeah.
Okay. No. For me, this was not a top shelf read. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm not a huge fan of horror, or maybe it's because I really wanted it to be something other than what it was. But I do like it. Like, I think that the points that it makes are really important, and I think it's thought-provoking. And I think it's just kind of a case of this just isn't what I enjoy. But I think it's a powerful book because it provoked a lot of reaction from me. So, but I also can't say it's like top shelf in the horror genre because I haven't read enough, and I haven't really read enough Gothic to say it's top shelf for Gothic. So I'm just kind of stuck with like, no. But I liked it, and it's powerful, and I think important.
Is this your first?
Okay, we just went back to high school. That was
I
funny.
think it might be. Yeah, I
That's
think
what
this
she
is my first. I don't know if I said the Unhoneymooners. I think I said it was a top shelf read.
I think
actually.
you said it. I think you said it was.
It was hard to say it was not a top shelf read though, because I did think it was like important. Like those points it made were good, but it just was not for me.
Did you give it a star rating by any chance?
I think it's like a 4-star
Okay.
for me, but it's just not. I don't know. Like I'm not going to be telling about it to my kids in the future one day, you know?
So Laura so far has said no, and Kristin has said no.
And Laura also commented she's listening to us from the bus,
Oh,
and she agreed with Stephanie's.
a different time
Cool.
setting. Yeah, like the prequel was really good.
I'm going to say that it was not for me, but to be fair, I've always read a lot of horror and like mystery vibes, all of that. So it wasn't really anything. I don't know. I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. It was just kind of like okay for me. Like I would probably say like 2.75 or something, maybe. I would give it even that much though, because I liked number one, the setting, the history, and number three, I liked the again the metaphor. Like I like the Babadook is a movie that has a cool metaphor with a
Oh my
horror
god,
thing.
that one is still,
Yes.
I can't
Yes.
deal with that movie. Oh
I'm
my
sorry.
god.
You're
Have you
welcome.
guys read this one? It screwed me up.
You read it?
No,
Wait, the book?
I watched it.
Watched it. Okay, yeah. So I
I've
like
never heard of it.
Screwed me up.
it's like a Australian movie, I think, or New Zealand. Something
What
like
is
that.
a Babadook?
You have to watch the movie to find out. It's I like that where because to me that means that the author like took it a step further. Like anyone can write graphic, horrifying things, which this book had a lot of. But I really liked like what it was telling us and showing us, and so that part made me like really appreciate that. So I'm glad that I read it and I own it and like I'm keeping it. So I didn't hate it because I wouldn't keep it if I didn't. But yeah, I think that I just wanted a little more from the characters and the writing and all of that. So
I'll go last.
oh,
Interesting. I just want to add,
Sarah.
anyone who is watching right now, if you want to let us know if it was a top shelf read for you too, like definitely let us know. So I guess we'll move to Sara.
Yeah, just because I'm still kind of mulling it over now.
I'm like an emphatic yes.
I knew it.
Are you kidding? This book is everything. This book literally to me is everything. Okay, so where do I even start with this? So like some people got it right, like yes, like obviously duh, like I love this book. For me it was so creepy, it was so atmospheric. It reminded me not like of Gothic. To me, the Gothic that it reminded me of was more of a Dracula Frankenstein. It was sort of a twist to me of what I thought it would be, which would be just this like haunted house, the supernatural phenomena. And then it just became this sort of Frankensteinian, just like what the F. And I love that so much. And then the deeper you dig into it, the more like Easter eggs you discover. I love that so much. I love how gruesome it was at parts. I love the parts that
smile.
That was a wicked smile.
I loved how uncomfortable it made me. I love Noemi. I loved just so. Ooh, well, that's gone. So I love just so much of this book. I love doing further reading into it. And like a hard yes for me for, sorry, my ear thing went away. But so something that will pretty much instantly just like top it up for me is when I read something and I'm like, I need to know further. Like I need to do further reading into this. This just provokes something where I have this like itch, like where I'm just like, where does this derive from? Where does eugenics tie into like Mexico? Like where does this tie in? Why is the author so interested in this? Oh, she has like a thesis in this topic. And then I want to just read more and more and more from it. So it totally had that effect on me. For me, it was the perfect horror because the horror was just this monstrosity of human nature. And I love that. That was sort of a weird interplay between what I think people, sort of deal with and battle with on a daily basis, but it is so undercover that rarely do people actually examine what is going on around them. Eugenics, modern eugenics, is this actually going on around? Why is this an important concept that is going on? And to me, that was the horrifying nature of this book. It was not the fungus. It was not the supernatural phenomena, but it was like how Angela had written. It was a very well executed device from which we were able to view that. I think the metaphors were brilliant. I think that the research into it was brilliant as well. And I'm really looking forward to watching a movie. And if there isn't one, I'm going to be writing her because I'm going to be like, what the F? You need to make this into a movie, and I'm rooting for you. I just loved her. I loved her writing style so much, and I was just totally enchanted by it. I loved everything. I loved the parts that I didn't like. I loved it.
That's such a glowing praise.
So yeah, it's a 5-star for me.
Oh, I knew it. It's a Sara.
So you were trying to throw me off when I said that it was because you got to do more research. You were like, well, I did research for Emma.
Well, that research
Oh, Emma.
I loved that book.
Oh, God. I did not.
Okay, so for me, I would say no, but I still did really enjoy it. I think, like I said before, the beginning of it was very different feeling to me. And I honestly thought it was going to be something more psychological because I obviously didn't do enough research and I didn't realize it was horror. So when she was having all the dreams and all those things were happening, it's just like, it's a dream. It's in her head. I wasn't scared at all. It didn't even really affect me. And then I was like, oh, well. So I didn't have the right feeling or at the beginning of the book to connect with the second. And I feel like the eugenics part, I was way more interested in that in the first half, and then the second half hit and the horror kind of took over. And I forgot about that a little bit because it was more focused on the horror aspect of it. But I still really liked it. I gave it a 4-star. I really enjoyed it a lot. I just think the first and second half didn't mesh well enough for me to really love it. But I liked both kind of separately, I guess.
Yeah. So I feel the same way that Stephanie felt. I can't say that it's a top shelf read, but I gave it 4.5 stars. I don't know why I gave it 4.5 stars.
That's what I did too, though.
Yeah, because I use the, I don't know if you all are familiar with the call pile system that G from Book Roast has, but I use that system of rating books. So it takes everything into account from your level of intrigue to the characters to the atmosphere to your overall enjoyment. And there's like a couple of other things in there as well. But yeah, I'm giving it 4.5 stars. And I think that the only reason why I'm kind of docking that half star is because, like Stephanie said, it almost felt like 2 separate books. And I just kind of wish it was a little more seamless. But I still really enjoyed myself. Will I reread it? Probably not, but I'm okay with that.
So maybe you're into horror after all.
Maybe, I don't know. I had a fun time with the Diviners, but the Diviners isn't like horror, really, is it?
It has its moments.
It has its moments.
Yeah, paranormal thriller. Yeah. Is anybody? I don't know if anyone's even still here. This has been almost 2 hours, but like, I wonder if anybody in the comments, if it's a top shelf read for anybody.
I haven't seen it.
I'd really like to know.
Well, if you're watching this on the replay, which we normally do, we normally get like about 100 views at least. Let us know in the comments. Oh, let's see. 4.5. Yeah. See, that's so weird because, like, for me, Stephanie, and Ysenia, we all gave it like at least 4 stars, I think, but it still wasn't a top shelf read. I guess that just goes to show, like, you know, a lot of like personal interest or specific elements like have to go into play, like, to make it that. Like for Sara, it makes so much sense to me that this would be a top shelf read for her.
I can't possibly imagine that.
Yeah. Oh, well, I guess that means our live show is coming to a close. Just to give a few kind of closing announcements, our November book is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. And I definitely plan on getting some spooky-ish vibes from this one, but it's a very different kind of it's kind of like, I guess you'd say like would you call it a thriller, like a classic?
I think it's kind of a gothic thriller almost, isn't it?
Okay, yeah.
I would not go into it expecting it to be a thriller though, because you're gonna be really bored for a while.
I was gonna say, like, it's a thriller for like this much of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're basically think about
it.
No, think about the audiobook's beautiful too, but think about that, like, you are basically following a young woman on her journey into the next step of her life, and you're basically in her head, so you get to hear her insecurities, her fears, her struggles, because she is not sure if her husband's former late wife is still hanging around or not. And she can't compare, so yeah, it's more psychological, but not psychological as in things are fake. It's psychological as in you are basically like feeling what she's feeling.
Okay.
Sorry, this is one of my favorite books of all time. So
it's so beautiful.
Have you guys read it already?
Well, I read it as a buddy read with my sister and husband, and they wanted to finish it by Halloween, so I like just finished it.
Okay.
Don't watch the movie first. Watch the movie second.
Don't watch the movie.
I already said this. Yeah, exactly. Don't watch the movie until you've read the book, or else it'll ruin the entire book for you.
Yeah, that's a great rule of thumb for always.
Yeah.
Just shout out to one of our, I guess, members, Leanne from Scrap Paper Scribbler. It's one of her favorite books too. So hopefully she'll be able to join us for that one. I know she watches these like afterwards. So we love you, Leanne. Hope you like it too.
I'm intrigued. I don't really know anything about this besides what you guys just said. So I'm intrigued to see how I find it.
Yeah.
I'm predicting that a couple of you guys will not like it. I'm going to go ahead and say it.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
really?
I could see that.
I think wait, Sara, you didn't like Emma, huh?
Yeah.
You guys
That's why
scared me so much about this book.
No,
Before I read it, I was like, am I not gonna like this?
you could totally love it.
I feel
Okay,
like
but here's the thing. In my opinion, Mexican Gothic doesn't hold a candle to the atmosphere of Rebecca. Like, I think that the atmosphere is just like, it's not scary. It's not scary at all. It's just like,
No, you're just in her head.
yeah, you're like, is something weird going
Doesn't
on?
hold
Or
a
is it,
candle. That's a burn.
Okay, wait.
That's
Well, I don't know. It's not horrifying.
I'm ready for this book.
Wait, no, it's not horrifying though. Don't think of horror. It's not horror at all. There's nothing Well, we don't know. Anyway,
there's no
it's
horror.
There's no horror is what I'm trying to say. Like, there's no horror, so don't go into it trying to compare it to Mexican Gothic or anything like that, because it's not like body horror or anything like that. It's just like suspense and like.
Okay. And it reads way more like Emma than it reads like Mexican Gothic too.
Sarah's not down.
I'm just saying.
It was written a long time ago, though. That's why.
Yeah, it was.
Do they eat babies?
Yes.
Not that I can remember.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, I was like, are you serious?
No.
Because if they do, I don't know.
I think, okay, for the people who've read it, don't you think Sarah would vibe with Rebecca?
Yeah.
I think Sarah would want to be Rebecca's
Who
like,
do
friend
you
or
think
something.
I am? What is this?
Oh,
You
would.
You like interesting people. You like complex and interesting and dramatic sometimes people. So I think you would get along with Rebecca.
That might save the book, honestly, for Sarah because of Rebecca.
Possibly.
I guess we'll have to find out.
Laura asked if it's partly based on Jane Eyre. I feel like it has Jane Eyre vibes. It might
I
be.
think it's just kind of that same Gothic style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you guys pronounce Jane Eyre because I can't.
Eyre?
Yes, Eyre, like A. How you spell Eyre?
AIR.
Oh, those books are
Everyone's gonna like Rebecca. That's just gonna be my prediction.
Well, Stephanie, you picked it, so I'm looking forward to it.
I picked it though.
You guys are making me change my mind. I wasn't gonna do this live show, but now I'm like, can I just make time? Oh no.
Yeah, make time. Do it.
Well, here's the thing though, you know when you have something so special to you and like it's gonna break my heart if you guys are like, yeah, this was garbage, and I'm gonna be like, I can't. So I'm like scared, like I almost just want to like protect it and let it like be my baby, but I'm like, oh no, I want to know what you guys think too.
Angela, you know me, right? We have very similar reading tastes, I feel.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
I'm not good.
But I'm talking about the other two over here.
What other two?
You and Ysenia. I don't know if you're gonna like it.
Yeah. I feel like me, Sarah, and Laura are always kind of the wild cards. Like you never really know. Like
That's
what
true.
I feel like we're the Simon Cowells
yeah, it wasn't
of the top shelf society.
Fahrenheit, but it was for A House in the Cerulean Sea. Laura was praising it a lot, and then she was like, I hated this book.
No.
I feel like Kristin is the Paula Abdul.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Basically.
Oh.
Sorry, she's down at my feet, lifting herself up. Here, you want to say hi?
Yeah.
Oh my god. This is Topaz. She's a chonker.
I can't have cats, so I just like to look at
I
other
don't
people.
have cats either.
I have to go back and rewind and see when my cat did that because I didn't even see that happen. I'm really
Look,
curious.
at first I just saw the tail and I was so like freaked out because I didn't know if it was a tail or a hand. And I was like, what's going on? But I didn't say anything because I was scared.
By the way, Kristin, were you attacked by any produce?
No, actually. I don't think I have been.
That's a win.
I know. But I can't eat much produce in my defense because of my braces. So that
Have
makes
a water flosser?
No, I need to get one because it's hard to floss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And water flossers are like $40. I think.
But they're like a golden investment.
You can use like your HSA to get it.
Yeah. I guess I might have to.
Yeah, it really is a good investment.
Okay, fine, I'll do it.
That's peer pressure we like.
No pressure to floss your teeth.
The highlight of my night is my water flosser.
Really?
Kinda.
Well,
Okay.
okay. With that, I guess we will end our 6th meeting of the Top Shelf Society. We don't really know the date yet, I don't think, for the November show, but we'll put that on our social media. I'm also not sure about December. I know December is a crazy month, so we might have to talk and see if we could even do a December show, but we'll let you guys know that in a little bit. So
Do it.
Huh?
I'm like, let's do it.
If
I'm like,
Sarah
let's
can do it with your schedule, I feel like you're like superwoman. My goodness.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yes, you are.
Nah.
You do everything.
You do.
It's you.
Nah.
You.
Okay, bye guys.
Bye.
Have a good end of year.